At the beginning of the movie, we see Professor Humbert driving his car. His face is covered with blood, there is a gun on the back seat, and in his hands is a hairpin belonging to Lolita, with whom he fell in love without memory, which ruined his whole life. When he was 14 years old, he fell in love with a girl, but she died, leaving a deep wound in his heart. Years later, coming to New England, he found a remedy for his youthful misery. The professor settled in the home of Charlotte Geiss, a widow, for two reasons. The house he planned to live in had burned down, and Charlotte had an adorable daughter, Lolita. Initially, he wanted to refuse the deal and look for another place to live, but when he saw the young girl under the jets of water, he instantly fell in love. The half-forgotten youthful love came alive again in his heart. Humbert began to make notes about Lolita and her mother, frankly describing everything, hiding nothing. Charlotte did not attract him much and often annoyed him with her screaming and quarrels with her daughter, but Lolita delighted him. She felt it and fueled his feelings with all her might, though it was only a game to her. Humbert watched her when she brushed her teeth or woke up at night to eat at the refrigerator, followed her activities in the yard, and strove to spend as much time with her as possible. In doing so, he failed to notice that the lady of the house had fallen in love with him, which he learned about when Lolita asked him to persuade his mother to go to the lake. During the trip, Charlotte informed him that Lolita would soon be leaving for summer camp and then a boarding school for girls. This news upset him, but Lolita's departure left him with fond memories. Noticing him escorting her with a look, Lolita abruptly ran into the house, jumped into his arms, and kissed him passionately. After Lolita and her mother left, he passionately burrowed into her clothes, where he was caught by Charlotte's maid, handing him a letter from his mistress. In the letter, Charlotte asked him to leave the house if he had no feelings for her, but if he was willing to try, he could stay to live. He decides to stay, and soon they are married. Humbert becomes a model husband, but despite the stamp in his passport and the ring on his finger, he avoids intimacy with Charlotte by all means. He has to experiment with sleeping pills, which only work for 4 hours, after which she wakes up and demands a marital debt with forfeit. Later, Humbert goes to the doctor and asks for a sleeping pill that will put the elephant to sleep for at least 7 hours as well. When he returned home, his wife was crying. While he was gone, she opened his desk and found all his notes, realizing what a disgusting creature she had let into her home. She doesn't want to see him anymore and writes a letter to Lolita while he tries to comfort her. He steps away for a few minutes to pour himself a scotch, at which point the phone rings. He is informed that his wife has died. He doesn't believe it and goes to see her, but she's nowhere to be found. She ran out into the street to send letters, and the driver didn't react in time, hitting her. Humbert is shocked, takes the letters she wanted to send, and burns them in the fireplace. He then goes to pick up Lolita from the camp, and on the way he books a room for 2 at a hotel. To the girl, he tells her that her mom is sick. When they arrive at the hotel, Lolita meets a famous playwright named Claire. This older man takes an unhealthy interest in Lolita. Humbert is informed that the room with 2 beds is occupied and he will have to share a bed with Lolita for the night. They have dinner and return to the room. He leaves her alone so that she can tidy up before going to bed and goes out onto the terrace, where he is touched by Claire's conversation. After getting tipsy, Claire voices her dirty thoughts about Lolita and Humbert, somehow guessing his intentions. When Humbert returns to the room, Lolita is already asleep. In the morning, she takes the initiative and lets him know that she is not new to this sort of thing. On the way home, she wants to call her mom, and Humbert has to tell her that her mother is dead. She cries all night after learning of her mother's death. Since she has no one else but Humbert, she quickly forgives him for keeping the truth from her. He takes her away from her hometown, and they travel across the country, staying in motels and having a carefree time. Lolita behaves like a typical child, and Humbert takes a chance that not everyone gets. However, all this comes to an end, and he decides to put her through school. At first, everything goes well, but then he begins to think that she is hiding something. She asks for more and more money and manipulates him into letting her act in the school play. The play is written by the same Claire they met at the hotel. He is informed that Lolita has missed some classes. He asks her about it, and she makes up a convincing lie, which is confirmed by her school friend. Humbert believes that Lolita wants to get away from him and is saving her pocket money for that very purpose. They quarrel, and she runs away. He searches for her all over town and finally finds her in a cafe where she is talking to someone on the phone. He takes her home and tells her she wants to leave. This time the itinerary is chosen by her herself. They set off on their journey, and on the way he notices someone following them. At a gas station, he notices her talking to someone and asks her about it, but she says he was just asking for directions. They stop at yet another hotel. He leaves to get some fruit, and when he returns he notices that Lolita has gone somewhere else. He loses his mind and tries to ask her where she went, but she only laughs in response. After a while she falls ill, and he takes her to the hospital. The next day he is told that she is better and her uncle has taken her away. Full of anger, he tries to find out from the doctor who they gave his girl to. However, when he notices the police, he calms down and leaves. He wasn't going to give up so easily. He drives around to all the motels where they stayed and looks for those who were also staying there. Eventually, he notices the same handwriting but different names in each place. He realizes that this is the person who took Lolita away. Realizing that she is gone from his life forever, Humbert returns to his old job and 3 years later receives a letter from her. In the letter, Lolita informs him that she is married, expecting a child, and asks Daddy to send her and her husband a few $100s so that they can at least cover their debts a little. He decides to go to Lolita's house and starts practicing shooting with his gun. The professor is determined to get rid of the man who took his girl. Lolita has settled on the outskirts in a poor neighborhood. The door is opened to him by a grown-up girl with a rounded belly. However, in her he sees the Lolita he fell in love with years ago. He is still crazy about her. She tells him that her husband thinks Humbert is her father and also confesses that she has always loved only Claire. But he kicked her out when she refused to appear in his adult movies with minors. He gives her $4,000 and tells her it's her money, but wants to know if there's any chance she'll go back to him. She replies that there is no chance. When she talks about Claire, she also mentions where he lives. As he drives away from the house, he sees the very same Lolita for a moment. Humbert finds Claire's house, sneaks inside, and meets him on the second floor wearing only a robe. The man is barely conscious because of the drugs. Humbert brings him to his senses and threatens him with a gun, wanting Claire to realize why they want to kill him. When Claire regains consciousness, he tries to take the gun away, but he fails and decides to run away. However, Humbert shoots him. Claire climbs into his bed out of fear, and there Humbert kills him. Covered in blood, he drives off in his car. On the way, he is stopped by the police, but he doesn't notice anyone around him. Eventually, Humbert is arrested and taken to jail, where he dies of a heart attack. Lolita dies a few weeks later during childbirth. Thank you for watching. You have been on the Rome Recap channel.